Who does someone need to become to be able to build an empire, to be able to lead teams, to be able to have big vision? It's not necessarily what you have to add to yourself. It's really what you need to take away. There's a better version of us around the corner. Become the version of yourself that's literally going to make more impact, make more money, change the world, help humanity. There's a greater chance of success than failure. I don't believe that they're even successful until you have those failures. There's no university that teaches you lessons that you're going to learn from failed business, right? We overestimate how easy it's going to be. We underestimate how difficult and adversarial this process is going to be.
Sweet. B, thanks for doing this, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm really pumped. So, I've been following your content for a few years. So, yeah, really pumped to do this. But
thank you for coming out, Tariq.
Yeah, absolutely. Tariq, by the way.
Tariq, I apologize.
No, it's all good.
I apologize. I think I did this at the scale day too. I may have slaughtered your name. I apologize.
Yeah, everyone does it.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to start out reading out a quick part from your book, which is incredible. So you said, everything changes when you man up. You go from wasting time on a daily basis to taking measurable steps and massive action on your destined path to success. You go from being an amateur to a pro, from a poser to the real deal. So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur who's going through a rough patch, or a newcomer who's trying to figure out your way in the entrepreneurial world, or someone who just needs a kick in the ass for a change, this is the book that will finally help you break out of mediocrity, get singularly focused, and dominate in business and in life. Let's go. What does man up mean to you?
It means manning up to your highest potential. Like, we all know we have a higher calling. There's a better version of us around the corner. I oftentimes will call it we typically live our lives as the 1.0 version. We're emotional. We're driven by our feelings. We overeat, overdrink, oversmoke, undersleep, underexercise. We all know what the 2.0 version looks like. There's this conscience inside you that's like that voice that sounds just like you, but a lot more reasonable and a lot more intelligent, a lot more connected to your creator. And it's like, psst, here's how you should be operating. You should go to sleep now instead of being a dumbass and being awake all night, playing video games, watching television, pornography, alcohol, whatever. Manning up is saying, finally, that's it. I'm done. I'm turning pro. I'm going 2.0. I'm going 2.0 and dropping all the excuses, because we can come up with so many excuses. My parents, the economy, my spouse. I wasn't born in this country. I was born in this country. I'm black. I'm white. I'm Chinese. I'm rainbow colored. Transgender. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you man up as a human up to your higher potential and become the version of yourself that's literally going to make more impact, make more money, change the world, help humanity. There's a version of all of us that exists in a higher form, but you got to man up, which means killing the 1.0 version. And that's the scariest thing to do, is to kill all those vices, addictions, habits, and parting ways with friends and family who don't fit into your 2.0 plan. And that's what manning up is. Yeah.
Awesome, man. So, you've built your franchise brand, Fit Body Bootcamp. We're here in the headquarters, which is pretty awesome. You have a bunch of different companies. Give us a perspective of what's your portfolio look like these days in terms of all the different businesses you're invested in. You've got, True Lean.
Yeah. So it looks like the companies that I own wholly, 100%, True Lean Supplements, Fit Body Bootcamp, Domination Year Coaching Program, Legacy Tribe Coaching Program, The Project, and the Squire Program. Now, the Squire Program is something we have licensed now across the country. We've got 6 locations across the country. It's a father and son coaching program, like a 12-hour experience, right? Father and son experience, a rite of passage for boys. So those are all the companies that I wholly own. And then in my portfolio is a lot of crypto and a lot of real estate, both commercial real estate and residential real estate. And then I have equity in companies in the software industry. This brand, Fuel Hunt, it's an apparel line that's American made. And when I saw it, and I was a customer before I even bought equity into Fuel Hunt, because their whole tagline is, everybody wants to eat but Fuel Hunt, right? And it's like that line where everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit. And so everybody wants to eat but Fuel Hunt. And I started buying their gear. And then when I would wear it on stages and stuff, they would send me a social media message and they go, hey man, you're selling more of our stuff when you wear it on stages and on your podcast. So we'd love to send you more. And I'm like, hey, let's get on the phone. I thought like they were an existing company that's been around for years. They'd only been around for like a year and a half. And so I was like, what do you guys have planned for this? And like, well, we want to go all American made. We want it to be for the people who hunt, like who hunt in life, like people who get after it in life. We don't care if you're liberal, conservative. We don't care if you're gay, white, black, straight. If you go after your dreams in life, if you hunt, if you will hunt is for you. I'm like, I want to buy equity. You guys need money? They're like, yes. So I bought in. There's a software company called Fit Pro Tracker that runs all the front desk system for Fit Body Bootcamp, as well as hundreds of other gyms worldwide that I have equity in, and a few other companies. Black Site Ranch, the ranch that you came out to,
which is epic,
and Operation Black Site, which is a 2-day experience that we run 6 times a month, where we teach entrepreneurs how to shoot, move, communicate, hand-to-hand combat. Literally taught by like Michael Chandler, UFC fighter, Tim Kennedy, Green Beret, Navy SEALs. And when we're having our lunch breaks and dinner breaks and breakfast breaks, we bring in top entrepreneurs worldwide to speak to the entrepreneurs who are there learning to become their own bodyguards. And I also have equity in other businesses that I necessarily can't talk about, just don't talk about because I don't share that. But there's about 8 other businesses that I have equity in, anywhere from 10% to as much as 50%. And oftentimes people will ask me, well, how do you decide whether you're going to take equity in a company? My rule is this, three simple things. 1, do I like the product? Would I use it, eat it, wear it? Like, do I use the product? If the answer is yes, I go to step 2. Do I like the owners, the founders that I'm about to get married to, right? If the answer is yes, go to step 3. Do I have the audience or the email list or the social influence to throw gasoline on the fire, to really increase sales? If the answer is yes to that, to all 3, then I make an investment and then we light that business on fire.
That's incredible. So it's, to say you've been successful as an entrepreneur would really be an understatement. But I remember, back in the day before I opened my first franchise, I had a graveyard of 9 failed businesses. And I would look up to people that, like you, that have built, epic empire, right? And I'd think, man, I can't do it. I'm not like them. I don't have what it takes. And I think what's awesome about your content is sharing the dark stuff, right? The relatable stuff where, like, I can see myself in you. What's been through all the businesses, what's been your scariest moment as an entrepreneur?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've had a lot of failed businesses. One of my first businesses that I started was totalmuscle.com back in 1997. Went to the interwebs, were so new. There was no Google, no social media. It cost me like maxed out 2 or 3 credit cards that I had in my early 20s to create the website, bro. And then I would buy supplements and all different brands of supplements. It wasn't even my own supplement line. It was just different brands of supplements. And the whole pitch was, instead of going to a store where they're going to charge you more, I ship out of a warehouse. And so we're not on a storefront. And the warehouse was my spare bedroom and my 2-bedroom apartment. And totalmuscle.com failed because there was no way to market. And so I would literally send out 250 emails every night by going on AOL.com with those free discs that you get like 1,500 hours of internet access. And I would get on AOL.com through dial-up, and I would search. Back then you can search profiles of AOL users, America Online users. And if I would search weightlifting, fitness, working out. And so if weightlifting, fitness, working out was in your profile, your name would come up. I'd hit the email button and I'd cut and paste an email. Hey man, if you work out like I do, you want great supplements at a discounted price, check out totalmuscle.com.
And you were doing this all on your own?
Every night, 250. Yeah, manual. Like there was no email marketing platforms back then. I just had this thing like the internet's going to pop off one day and I'm going to be on the forefront of it. And there's a good lesson there, being too early to market or in an industry where you actually, the platform or the industry is not trusted yet. The internet was like, remember, the .com bubble hadn't even burst yet. People were like, I ain't going to trust the internet. So that miserably failed. And I got kicked out of my apartment because I used the last of my rent money to buy another supply of supplements. And people are like, why would you buy supplements if it wasn't selling? Well, supplements expire. And when they expire, you can't sell the goddamn thing. And so you got to throw them away, right? And so I'm throwing away supplements more than I'm selling. And so I'm like, okay, this time around, if I just send out 400 emails a night, and every now and again, I'd get a sale, but not enough to move enough supplements. So I was like, all right, if I just double up on my email marketing And I'm talking like 400 individual emails a night. Like I was falling asleep at 2 a.m, hitting send. And then I'd wake up to 3 or 4 sales. And so ultimately, I couldn't sell enough. I got kicked out of my apartment, lived in my Toyota pickup for 4 months. So like that was, totalmuscle.com was a failure. After that, I created a platform in the early 2000s, 2001, called High Tech Trainer. It was, again, online personal training that you would download to a PDA, Palm Pilot. This is before the iPhone, before the Android. iPhone and Android came out 2006, 2007, 2008. So 2002, 3, I'm making this thing, and not enough people had Palm Pilots. And so we were just struggling to get hightechtrainer.com to work. Leveraged, again, credit cards, got business partners.
How much money do you think you had invested into it? Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode.
Of my own money, I had invested $60,000, and then I had borrowed $128,000 from my original mentor, Jim Franco, who helped me with my first business.
Yeah.
My second business, a personal training gym. And Jim Franco was a shrewd businessman. On this one, he charged me 6% interest on the $128,000. And it wasn't even like, here's a loan I'm going to give you. It was like, I'm going to fund High Tech Trainer, and I get 33% of it. So I had 33% of High Tech Trainer. The software programmer that we hired, because we couldn't pay him, he had 33% of it. And then Jim Franco had 33% equity, plus would loan me money to grow the thing, grow the software and the marketing and sales. By this time, the internet was starting to get a little more lively, 2003, 2004. Well, lo and behold, didn't know that Apple was making an iPhone. And so when the iPhone came out, by the time we started gaining any kind of traction, like, okay, now we're making about $6,000 a month. 7, now we're up to 20 grand a month, which, by the way, 20 grand a month, as you know, is nothing for a business, because you might have $15,000, $16,000 of overhead expense.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're probably pouring it back into the business, any profit you make anyways.
100%, bro. 100% of it is going back into the business. So I'm just like living off like top ramen and canned tuna. And I'm like, but this thing's going to pop off. Fucking iPhone creates, or Apple creates the iPhone. And I'm like, well, there goes that. And we just couldn't pivot in time. And so I had to pay Jim Franco off. The first time I ever heard the term "come to Jesus" meeting. You ever heard that term?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I had never heard it in my late 20s. And one day Jim Franco calls me on my Nextel flip phone. And he's like, hey, Bubba. He'd call me Bubba. Hey, Bubba, why don't you come stop by my office after work? So I was working as a personal trainer and trying to get High Tech Trainer off the ground.
And this was before FitBody.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. This is like 2004, 2005.
So he was one of your clients, right?
He was a personal training client that believed in me. And so I go there, and he goes, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. And I was like, well, I know he's a Christian. He must think that I don't believe in a higher power. Like, okay. Like, I was naive to what a come to Jesus meeting was. And it was like, I'm done investing money in High Tech Trainer. As of today, you got to start paying me back. And I was like, and so that was another failed business. We shut the business down because we were losing more money than we were making every month. So I figured if we shut it down, at least I won't go deeper in debt. And I started working my nuts off to pay him back. And I was able to pay him back through the gyms that he invested in with me, the personal training gyms. And so, but I had 2 major failures right there, both totalmuscle.com, hightechtrainer.com. So anyone that goes into business and doesn't have failures, I don't believe I don't believe that they're even successful until you have those failures. It's just, you have to have those battle scars in business to be able to learn lessons that you couldn't learn anywhere. There's no university that teaches you lessons that you're going to learn from failed business. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not at all. And I mean, I look back at those 9 failures, and I mean, there was a point where, I mean, the thoughts that were going on in my head is, maybe I'm just not cut out for entrepreneurship. Right. Maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I should just switch careers. And yeah, I mean, our first franchise was the turning point for me. And I twisted my wife's arm to convince her, not really convince her, to twist her arm to take 300 grand out of our house at the time.
That's scary.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
And, you know, when it came right before signing the franchise agreement, this was back in 2015, she's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And, you know, I threw a fit in what I know, in the way that I knew back then. But we wind up sitting down and having that kind of come to Jesus moment. And she goes, look, you haven't followed through on any of the businesses that you've done. What happens when you don't want to do this anymore? What happens when we've sunk all this money into this business and you don't like it anymore, or you don't enjoy it? And I looked her in the eye, and I remember, I get the chills thinking about it. I said, I promise you, we will not fail. We will succeed. And I had no idea how I was actually going to make that happen.
But you made
I was going to do whatever it took.
Yeah.
I was staking my marriage on it,
Yeah.
So,
but sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to put something so high at risk that you were like, only death can stop me from executing. And that is the truth. When I look back, could I have made totalmuscle.com and High Tech Trainer work? Probably. I could have managed Jim Franco's money better. Sometimes when it's not our money, it's borrowed money, we don't manage it as hard. Sometimes when you're like, what do we do as entrepreneurs, especially brand new entrepreneurs? We overestimate how much we're going to achieve in the first year, and we underestimate how much we're going to achieve in the next 5 years, right? We overestimate how easy it's going to be. We underestimate how difficult and how just adversarial this process is going to be. And if I can go back and coach my old self, I would have made totalmuscle.com and High Tech Trainer successful, knowing what I know now. But so a lot of it is not the business itself, it's the businessman who just doesn't know, didn't realize that I'm going into battle. I'm taking a knife fight into a battle. I need a fucking tank. And so when you take a knife fight to a knife to a gunfight, you're likely going to die. And that's probably what happened to both of us starting out. And some of it was just like, oh, this is getting hard, I quit.
Yep.
Because we had something to fall back on. But when you stake your marriage, and in your case, and your house, basically, on the line, you're like, okay, this is a whole new level of risk that I'm assuming I will have to die for me to not be successful. And so obviously you're still here, and so your business took off.
Yeah, it worked out. So how did you go from those failures, to then, I know that Jim Franco partnered with you to get your first or second location, up and running. Were you scared? Like, were you feeling like you had PTSD from the past failures when you went into that venture? What was going on in your head then?
Yeah. Yes, I was scared, but I was also confident that I know personal training, and I know that I can make a big, like I made a big box gym work because I was a head personal trainer at one point at LA Fitness in La Habra. So I can make a brick and mortar work. And all I had at that time with Jim Franco, he invested in my first location, was like a 2,500 square foot personal training studio. So I'm like, all right, this is not online. This is not the internet. This is not like the Wild West. Many brick and mortars exist, freaking hair salons, dress shops, whatever, right? Chiropractors. And so there is a proven model out there that exists for brick and mortars. But back in 1997, all the way to early 2002, 2003, I was like on the forefront of the internet, which was like the Wild West. It's like, Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars. Well, when the first human gets on Mars, and it's like, okay, this is very different. What do we do? When the 20th human gets on Mars, they'll be better equipped based on the information that was passed along. So yes, I was scared. I had PTSD, but I also knew that I need to take a bazooka into this gunfight. And so I went in there with a different mindset. I went in there with like, everything's going to be hard. Everything's going to be difficult. Everything's going to cost more, and everything's going to take longer than I anticipate. So I went in there with this mindset instead of my plan's going to work out exactly as I anticipated, which never does. Yeah. So the mindset you enter the battle with is very, very important. I went in there overestimating everything before, like it's going to be super easy. This time I was like, nothing's going to be working in my favor, so I have to go there and just like fight tooth and nail. And so when things would work out, like Jim Franco was able to refer 5 or 6 personal training clients, I was like, okay, that's just gravy. Like, that's just gravy. Instead of putting out 10 lead boxes out at local restaurants and stuff to get leads, like, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to build muscle? Enter to get a free personal training session. They put their name in the lead box. These days, everyone uses the internet. But again, think about it, this is early 2000s. When I had my first personal training gym, I was like, I'm not going to put 10 or 20 lead boxes out. I put 200 lead boxes out. Like, dude, wow. You couldn't walk into a restaurant in San Marcos, California, like a fast food restaurant, a health food store, without seeing Premier Results lead box. And so I was just going in there, replacing the lead forms, and then just calling everybody and hounding them. I was like, if they don't pick up, I'm going to just keep calling and calling and calling and calling until they either change their number or tell me to F off or buy personal training from me, because I was now in like bazooka mode.
And how many hours a day were you working around that time?
16, 17, 18 hours a day. If I wasn't sleeping, I was working. And I had like 2 other personal trainers in there who were working. And I told them that they would get 30% commission of the money that comes in from the personal training clients that they were serving. Because I couldn't even pay them hourly at the time. I didn't have the money. Like,
Oh, wow.
all the money went to building out the gym and then the marketing strategy, which was make lead boxes and get every single business owner to come and work out for free. And if I can get them in shape, then people go, hey, you lost weight. Oh my gosh, how did you do it? Oh, I work out at Premier Results there, right? And so my job was just to drive leads, make sales, drive leads, make sales. And then 2 personal trainers became 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, et cetera. And before you know it, I had like 10, 11 personal trainers in one gym. I was like, all right, I can open up a second location. But going into that third business, again, with Jim Franco, but this time with a new mindset and new lessons. And in my defense, like, the internet was the Wild West. There was no like, okay, who do I model? Even Amazon was trying to figure it out. So it wasn't like, let me model Jeff Bezos and see what I can do with Total Muscle. Like, there was nothing to model. Whereas I can go to the local chiropractor who's kicking butt and go like, hey, what's your best referral generation strategy? And he goes, oh, it's this. I'm like, oh, I can use that in personal training. Hey, what do you put on your lead boxes? Oh, I put this. Great. I can put that on my personal training lead boxes. I had something to model. So, which really speaks to success leaves clues. Like, if you're going to get into an industry first by working for someone who is successful, see the clues that they've left, and then break off and then go and start your own thing, where at least now you have some idea of, I know what to do. There's a greater chance of success than failure.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like one of the reasons why you wind up succeeding was because of that blueprint, that model, right? And that was similar for me with using the franchise, right? At that time, it was like, it wasn't all on me. And the times where I would get stuck, overwhelmed, give up, I could call the franchisor. And then, hey, I need help, and they would help. And that was really huge. I mean, that was big. Now, obviously, you have built a large part of your portfolio success impacting other people through building a franchise business. It's interesting because some of the comments that we'll see online, people will go, franchising isn't a real business. That's not a real business. What do you say to people who say that franchising is not a real business?
Look, I can see both ways of it. In fact, Seth Godin, you know who Seth Godin is, right? By the way, I just heard the other day, for 12 years, he has been putting up a blog post every single day for 12 years, never missing a day. Like, that in itself is a feat. But Seth Godin, so I subscribe to his blog, and he's a marketing genius. A bit of a savant. Maybe he's somewhere on the spectrum as well. I don't know. I've never met him in person.
He had like the Purple Elephant book or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's like titled like 20 some odd books, man, like 15 of them becoming New York Times bestsellers. But anyway, subscribe to his emails. And this was like 8 years ago. I see an email in my inbox from Seth Godin. It's one of his broadcasts that he sends out. And he says, why franchising is not a real business. And he's talking about people that open up a franchise location, right? Like the Subway store location owner, the Jiffy Lube owner, in my case, the Fit Body Bootcamp location owner, right? And I was like, well, that's interesting. I beg to differ. And he's like, well, here's why. Like, he says, if you were a real entrepreneur, you would go and figure it out yourself. Whereas a franchise model, someone's already figured it out for you and is giving you the playbook, the blueprint to paint by numbers. I'm like, okay, yeah, we do that. Fit Body Bootcamp does that for our franchisees. True. He goes, plus, if you're an entrepreneur and you do it yourself, when something goes wrong, you got no one to call. You got to figure it out. FIO, figure it out yourself. Just like you said earlier, you can call the franchisor. My Fit Body Bootcamp franchise owners can call us, can call me, or not me, or me here at corporate office, and we're going to help them get through whatever the problem, employee problem, marketing problem, sales problem, product, service, fulfillment problem. And so as I'm reading that, and he's like, so basically, if you're a franchisee, you pretty much own a job, which is better than having a job, I suppose, is what he's saying. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess you have a point, but what about the guy or gal that owns 5 Fit Body Bootcamp, 8 Fit Body Bootcamp, 10 Fit Body Bootcamp locations, right? Like, we have those franchisees. They are not running the day-to-day. They're not in the trenches. They are overseeing facility leaders. They're overseeing their coaches. They're overseeing marketing for 5, 8, 10 locations. So I do believe the answer is a yes and a no. It's if you might own one location, it's owner operated. Hey, guess what? You're probably going to make better money than if you did working a 9 to 5 somewhere where someone else controls your economy. You're working a job that you don't necessarily have passion for, and you're helping build someone else's business, and you don't know if they can get bought out. And then all of a sudden you're sorry, man, here's a pink slip. Your position is no longer available. And you're like, whoa, but my bill still exists.
Which is part of what's happening right now with AI and the economy.
Exactly. All over the world, we're seeing that happen. So at least if I own my own Subway sandwich, Fit Body Bootcamp location, whatever, I control my own economy. And to me, okay, great. I'll take owning a job over having a job. But if I'm really ambitious and I really want to focus on scaling my personal income, I can have multiple locations and be a true entrepreneur, because I might take, this part of Southern California and buy out, 15, 20 locations called the territory, right? And then have a deal. We have plenty of MOAs, multi-outlet agreements with franchisees that, over the next 5 years, I'm going to open 12 Fit Body Bootcamp locations. Like, those are legit entrepreneurs, man. Like, they are doing like legit stuff. In fact, there are 6 Burger King franchise owners that have turned their franchise into a publicly traded company. So they have so many Burger King locations, a franchisee, that they went and became public. Right?
Interesting.
So not the franchisor. Obviously, the Burger King, the franchise brand is public, but also like this conglomerate that owns 200 Burger King locations, like they went public. This one that owns 150 went public. So that's like legit business.
Oh yeah. So and there's a ton of private equity companies that that invest into them as well.
They invest into them. They buy them out and consolidate them. Like, absolutely. So it can be a, hey, you own a job. And it could also be you're a legit entrepreneur scaling multiple locations, but you have a franchisor who is constantly helping you refine systems and is a backstop for any problems that you might encounter.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, kind of unpacking the person who winds up maybe buying themselves a job, running one operation, kind of getting stuck in the day-to-day, to someone who's scaling, right, an empire. One of the things that I find really interesting about your message, it's so much deeper than business, right? It's around impact, legacy, and self-mastery.
Self-mastery, yeah. Purpose and meaning. How about that? Like, so many of us, we turn into adults and all of that. You ask a little kid, what do you want to do, little boy or girl? Like, oh, I want to be a veterinarian. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a whatever. And then all of a sudden we go and become accountants and bookkeepers and whatever. And it's like, oh man, oh yeah, just in the rat race, and that's what we call it. We call it, hey, and then we go, hey man, how's it going? Hanging in there. It's like, hanging in where? Like, if I have to give the hanging in there answer, like when someone says I'm hanging in there, it's like, wow, just picture them like on a cliff, sad and depressed, hanging, like bloody fingernails. Like they're even contemplating, it might be a better life if I just let go instead of just hanging in here. Like, I don't want to live a life where I'm hanging in there, and so I would rather own my own job and work 24/7 than have a job and work 9 to 5 for someone who doesn't respect me, value me, and I don't know if I have a job tomorrow or not.
So who does someone need to become? Like, if I own one location of a business and I go, I want to build something that Bedros has. I want to build this empire, this portfolio of businesses. What needs to happen to go from here to here?
That's a good question. And so I get that question often, like, who does someone need to become to be able to build an empire, to be able to lead teams, to be able to have big vision? It's not necessarily what you have to add to yourself. It's really what you need to take away, right? When Michelangelo was creating the statue of David, and they said, man, you created this entire statue from one giant slab of marble. Like, how did you do it? He goes, simple. I just removed everything that wasn't David. Right? So with his hammer and chisel, he removed every piece of, granite or marble, whatever it was, that wasn't David. And what was left was David. Oftentimes what we need to do, and we talked about this earlier on your show, we have to kill the version of us that is not a great leader. So the version of us that is not a great communicator, the version of us that is afraid of confrontation, the version of us that is afraid of failing. We have to kill the version of us that wants to stay up and watch TV all night. We have to kill the version of us that doesn't want to work out, because look at you, man, you're jacked and you're jacked. Every entrepreneur needs to be jacked physically, mentally, emotionally. And the reason is it is a tough road being an entrepreneur. In 2020, how about this? In January of 2020, did you ever think 2.5 months later, there'd be a pandemic that would shut down the world and affect your business in such a negative way?
Oh, no.
You didn't think of that. I didn't think of that, right? And so all of a sudden, if I'm not mentally, physically, emotionally jacked, like I haven't done hard stuff, I'm going to crumble under that kind of pressure, you know? And so like you have to kill versions of yourself that regular people are allowed to have, that you and I as entrepreneurs can't have. These civilian habits, behaviors, belief systems have to die for you. Then what's left is a visionary who's a great communicator, who can lead his or her team and can execute on a timeline without, okay, I'm not going to say without fear, but with limited fear, because there's always some level of fear when you're taking a risk, investing money. We're now looking to grow into UK and Australia with Fit Body Bootcamp. Like, there's a part of me that's like, I wonder if we're going to be accepted well in these different countries, right? But I'm going to take that calculated risk. There's a version of me that I had to kill to become the guy who can lead his team into growing worldwide. And so that part is important. And then so what's left is a great leader who can communicate, who can build a team, who can cast a vision, and who can execute on time.
In your book, you said by and this was when you were like in the heart of growing Fit Body. Not that you're not in that now, but you said the reality had set in. I knew in my bones that I wasn't a good leader. For years, I blamed everyone and everything when things went wrong. But now I realize that I was the one fucking it up all along. How did you come to that realization? And then how do you turn things around from there?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. I came to the realization that I wasn't a great leader because at some point, there's a self-inventory that happens. Like when you have your back against the wall, you're like, all right, I'm maxed out on my credit card debt. We refinanced our house, right? Twice, exactly. So this was the second time we refinanced the house. I'm sitting in my car listening to Howard Stern and feeling sorry for myself. And I should have been working out. Instead, I would go to the gym, park in the gym parking lot, and I even talk about it in the book. I'd either take a nap in the car and I'd crack the window. So I like in California, right? It's hot, so I can get some air. Or I would listen to Howard Stern. And it was right around that time I remember like being in my car thinking like, all right, is it a coincidence that like everything around me is going wrong and everything around me that's going wrong has one thing in common, me, right? Like I don't like my employees. I don't like my business partner. The marketing system that I deployed, that I had my team deploy, is not working. The sales process that I had my team deploy is not working. The franchisees that I brought on, I'm now having conflicts with. The spouse that I chose, I'm now butting heads with. The dog and cat that I purchased, that I got, that I rescued, won't even come to me when I come inside the house because like I'm giving up this like angry, toxic, like bad energy. Like even the dog and cat were like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Like we're about to get kicked, right? Like, you know, like the proverbial, like, you know, hey, don't go around kicking your dog. Like they knew like they were going to get kicked. Now I would never harm a dog or a cat. But I was just like, so I realized like, either the dog, the cat, the wife, the franchisees, the employees, the business partner, the marketing team, the sales team, either all these people have colluded behind my back to make me seem crazy, or maybe I'm the problem. And I was like, oh my God, I am the problem. And when you accept that responsibility, and there was a particular Howard Stern episode where Howard Stern was interviewing Howard Wosden in the 1990s during that Black Hawk Down time in Mogadishu. Howard Wosden was a Navy SEAL. He wrote a book called Memoirs of a Navy SEAL Sniper. So Howard Stern is interviewing Howard Wosden about his book, and I'm in my car listening. And I do remember that Howard Wosden kind of teed up the fact subconsciously for me that I may be the problem, right? He goes, you know, as a Navy SEAL, he goes, it's our job to have a good, better, best option. In other words, we're going to get the mission accomplished. We're going to kill the bad guy. As a sniper, I'm killing the bad guy. Best case scenario, we get to the target on time. I climb on top of the tallest building. I spot the target immediately, and I pull a bullet right in his head. Best case scenario. He goes, better scenario, the next version down, takes us a little while to get to the target. I'm not on the tallest building. I'm on a helicopter that's moving. I'm trying to take a shot. It's the third shot that kills him. The good scenario, which is the worst case scenario, my rifle jams. I'm on the helicopter. The helicopter drops me off. I go and stab the guy to death. Either way, bad guy is dying, right? And I'm like, wow. He goes, that is like leadership at its highest level. Like, you have a mission to accomplish, and it all starts and stops with you. He goes, I can't go back to my command and go, sorry, I wasn't able to kill the bad guy because poor weather or my rifle jammed or I couldn't shoot off a helicopter. Like, that's my mission, and I have to accomplish it. And I was like, oh my God. He would never go back and say, blame the weather, the helicopter, the building, the target kept moving around, zigging and zagging, so I couldn't really get my sight on him. He's going to stab the guy to death with his fucking claws if he needs to, right? I'm like, all right, I think I'm the problem. I want everything to be perfect. I need a perfect spouse. I need perfect sales process. I need perfect marketing. I need perfect team. I need a perfect business partner. And that's not the case. And so I realized, when was the last time that I've set my expectations to my business partner, to my team, to my marketing agency that I was using? I hadn't set expectations. I hadn't showed them what winning looks like. I had no KPIs, key performance indicators, yet I would get mad and passive aggressive with them, and then all of a sudden blow up passive aggressively at these people. And they'd be like, whoa, 1 minute we were fine, but we weren't, because for months before I'd been stewing, and then boom, I'd blow up, right? Like, that's bad leadership. I wouldn't communicate my thoughts and feelings, and I would expect them to somehow telepathically know what I'm thinking. And then when they didn't, I would explode at them. And then now there's like a tense relationship in our office. And so that was the 1.0 version of me as a leader. The moment I was like, it's all on me. If I have to kill the target, it's all on me. How am I going to do it? And when I realized that, everything changed.
Hey, so if you want to learn the right way to own a money-making franchise without putting your family at risk financially, then check out our free masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the episode. And how do you go about doing that, though? Like, tactically, someone goes, well, I get it. I have the desire to get from here and there, but I can't seem to get out of my own way. For that person who's stuck and they're feeling like, I can see it, but I just can't move. What have you done in those moments where you felt stuck or kind of paralyzed that have helped you?
So we're never really stuck. We just have a lack of commitment. We haven't fully committed yet. And you're a great example of that. Like, 9 businesses you failed at or didn't succeed at, and your wife calls you out on it. Like, dude, you're pulling $300,000 on the house 9 times when you lost interest and didn't feel like it. What makes this time any different? And basically, in no other terms, you were like, I'm going to commit. Like, I'm betting our marriage on it, is what you said. But basically, that's code for, I'm finally going to commit to this. Like, hell or high water, I'm doing it. So we're never really stuck. It's just a lack of commitment on our part. And so once we have commitment, we can figure anything out, because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So if it's like, all right, I need to be a better leader, then you start doing research. What does a good leader consist of? Well, good leader probably has vision of what he wants the outcome to look like. All right, great. I need to cast a vision. Should it be a 10-year vision, 20-year vision? Start doing a little Google search. Oh, I see. 12 months. 3 years, 5 years. That's EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. 12-month goal, 3-year goal, 5-year goal. Let me cast a vision for each one of those. I don't need a 10-year goal. In 10 years, the internet might be very different. We might have a chip planted in our head, but everyone plants a 10-year goal, 20-year goal because it's so far enough out, I don't have to think about it. In 20 years, I'm going to be a billionaire. And you're like, wow, Bedros, I'm impressed by you. Well, what am I doing today on a day-to-day to get there? But if I have a 12-month, 36-month, and then a 5-year goal. So if the goal is leadership, I'm going to deconstruct the steps of leadership. A good leader must have vision, okay? The vision must be what I want, when I want it by, and why I want it. So write that down. 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. Okay, now communicate that to your team. Okay, you did. Have they bought in? Most of them did, some of them didn't. Fire the ones that didn't, replace them with people that did. Okay, now you have a team that's bought in. That's another great leadership. All right. Do you know how to manage people and not just lead people? Leading people is casting a vision, telling them what you want. Managing them is knowing that who's an introvert, who's an extrovert, who's got fears and frustrations, who's ready to run through a wall, who needs to be challenged and who needs to be kind of nurtured towards doing things, right? Managing people is very different than leading, right? Leading is 30,000 foot level. Managing is in the weeds, right? So a good leader also needs to manage. Okay, how do I manage different personalities? I found that I was able to manage people who had my personality, type A, tightly wound, high speed, but people who were a little more lackadaisical, people who needed a little more understanding before they can execute, I would get frustrated with them. And so I was like, okay, I need to learn to manage different personality types. Okay, that's another trait. So now you want to be a good leader, there's traits and skills you got to develop.
And how did you learn to manage different personalities? Because I get the sense, like when I feel like, I can relate to you in many ways because people say I come across as intense or, kind of hard-assed and so there's a certain kind of personality style that we naturally don't do well with,
sure.
Or just we mean well, but maybe come off the wrong way.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that?
Great question. So, and I'm glad because you're like, if someone's stuck, how do they go from here to here? So I was like, all right, so I have to learn because I realized in my office, we have literally 2 different genders. Well, I guess today we can have 19 different genders, but in my office at the time, we had 2 different genders, right? And then of those 2 different genders, we had different age groups, different ethnicities, which come with their own like factory installed fears, frustrations, issues. And then who knows what kind of upbringing? I don't know their parents, but maybe the parents were like, you're going to be a failure your whole life. And others like, well, hey, you're going to be a savage your whole life. And so the savage I can relate with. The failure, the one who's like afraid of failure, but really wants to win, is there because they're attracted to my personality, but I'm frustrated with them because they're always have a little bit of trepidation. They're always not quite sure. So I was like, how do you manage different personality types? Turns out you ask Google anything and it'll give you an answer, right? I swear to God, this is how I literally found like, how do you manage people, right? Because I was like studying leadership.
And how much does Google charge you for this?
Free. It's absolutely free.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so one of the searches that I found, the results that I found was this thing called Taking Flight. And Taking Flight basically takes the DISC assessment and breaks it down into birds, 4 different birds: the eagle, the owl, the dove, and the parrot. Surprise, surprise, when I took the test, I'm a high eagle. Usually the doves are the people like, is Shelby in here? Shelby, are you a dove?
No. Yes.
You came back as a dove?
And a parrot, yeah.
Dove and a parrot, right? Like, but you're probably a high dove?
Yeah.
There you go. Like I can see people and like you're high eagle and probably low parrot, like when you take the test, and it's personality traits. And it tells you like, all right, have your people take this test. They're going to come back as a eagle, a dove, a parrot, or an owl. All of your accountants, your bookkeepers, they're owls, right? Okay. Here's a crazy thing. When my team took the test and the people that came back as owls in my company, across all my companies, I'm like, oh my God, I hate all of my owls. Like I literally have a hate on for all my like bookkeepers, accountants, CPAs, right? And then you know what it tells you? It says the owls are the people who are cautionary. They're probably accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers. They want to keep you out of jail because you and I just want to like blow money in marketing and grow our companies and we're like taxes, fuck the government, right? Whatever. Like not necessarily that extreme, but it literally said, the owls are the ones in your company who are pumping the brakes. And therefore, to the eagle, the owl looks like an obstacle. Like, why do you keep pumping the brakes? They're like, whoa, we're taking way too much money. We're growing so fast. Are you sure we have the infrastructure? And they're questioning you. And you're like, as the eagle, I don't like this, right? And it goes, here's how you work with the owl. If you can make them feel understood why you're making the decision. To an owl or a dove, like the dove's like, hey, I want to make sure the temperature's right for you. I want to make sure you guys have your bottles of water. I want to make sure that like the setting's perfect, right? And the parrot's like usually your sales guy. Hey, buddy, how's it going? We're doing good. All right, we're doing great. Fantastic. So I got this laptop to sell you and these 2 microphones. You're going to buy them, right? And if you buy that, you get a free book. But once you realize how to deal and communicate and make each feel understood and kind of suppress their fears and frustrations, because the owl's like, wait a minute, you said 1 minute we're going to grow in US and Canada, next minute we're going to Australia. Oh my God, I got to learn Australian tax codes. Oh my God, I got to make sure that I don't mess up your taxes in Australia. That's what they're thinking. So they're like, wait, can you not go into Australia yet? And you're like, why are you trying to stop my growth? Is how the eagle sees it.
Oh yeah.
Instead, it's, what did you see that I haven't seen yet? Mrs. Owl. And she's like, well, the tax codes in Australia, I have no fucking clue about. And I need to understand. You're like, oh my God, I should have told you that I hired an Australian CPA because as an Eagle, we do shit and we never communicate it downstream.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've already made the decisions, and the doves come from behind us and like fix and organize and correct. But the owls are like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, stressing out. So once you look, like, I swear, man, taking flight is the best thing that any leader can do. Taking flight and then EOS. And so how did I find EOS, the book Traction? Again, how do I solve problems in my companies that are hard for me to even discover? And then like all these books came up. One of them was Traction by Gino Wickman. I read the book. He talks about EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And then it says, hey, we have implementers. We hired an implementer named Brian Underhill. Now Brian Underhill is the implementer for all of my brands and all of the companies I take equity in. We literally apply EOS. And then we go, hey, everyone's going to do the taking flight. So we know your personality types. So we know how to lead you and communicate with you and manage you. And all of this is available with a Google search. How do I become a better salesperson? And then deconstruct the model, learn the traits, the skills, the verbiage, and then do it. Like, we're so pliable. But sometimes we're like, I need to be a better leader. I'm not. Okay. You think it's just going to get installed by you? Like it's going to get downloaded? Do a Google search, break down the elements, and then eat one chunk at a time until you understand how to talk to the owls and the doves and the parrots. Because I love eagles. I get along with eagles.
Yeah.
But if I hire an office full of eagles, we're all going to jail.
Yeah, we're screwed.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think it was around a year or so ago, and I was reading this, and I read that part about the whole leadership thing and not being clear and communicating and realizing the problem was me. And I had that moment where I was like, oh shit, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. And I think at that time you were talking about EOS, and then we went and we took it and installed it into the business. So what is EOS, and what role has that played for you in building your companies?
Yeah, good question. I talk about EOS in the book Traction so much, I feel like Gino Wickman should give me an equity in the company. For the record, your audience should know that I do not make any money from the Traction book or EOS.
Roger that.
But I believe in it so much because it's transformed my companies. So EOS is this, entrepreneurial operating system, and it takes the organization chart that a company has, like, okay, you're the CEO and below you is the VP, the CEO is in charge of the VP, and the VP is in charge of these people. That's the org chart that we're used to. Throws the organizational chart out the window, and it says we're going to have an accountability chart. The accountability chart, we no longer have titles. Now there's a visionary, there's the integrator underneath the visionary, and then there's everybody else who is going to do a job. We all have rocks, quarterly rocks, as in, so there's individual rocks and there's company rocks, according to EOS. Individual rocks is, the salesperson has to close 6 locations a month, right? That's an individual rock. A company rock is we have to generate 35 applications, franchise applications a day. That's a company rock. And every Tuesday when we meet at a L10 meeting, level 10 meeting, which is right out of EOS, we go, all right, where are you on your personal rocks? Are you on track or off track? If you're on track, thumbs up. Awesome, great. You're on pace for your goal for that month. So we go over the individual rocks, and then we go over the company rocks. Anything that's off track, we move to IDS. Again, another terminology from EOS. IDS is identify, discuss, and solve. So at the end of the 90-minute meeting, we go, all right, what do we have in IDS? Well, as a salesperson, I was off track with my rocks. I'm probably 4 locations behind. Can we IDS this? Yeah, sure. What's the problem? We're getting enough applications in, but they're all Spanish speaking and fucking Portuguese speaking, and they're not English speaking, and I don't know what to do with Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking people because I don't speak the fucking language, and so I'm behind, right? Like literally, this has happened before, and so we were like, oh my God, why are we getting? So we reach out to our marketing agency. Hey, we're getting 34 applications a day like we need, but a lot of them are Spanish speaking. They're like, oh, they are? Well, in the last month, I've really gotten the cost of lead down to like from $70 to like $9. I'm like, oh my God, dude, we will pay $80, $90, $100 a lead if they're Spanish speak or English speaking and here in the States. You're marketing Fit Body Bootcamp to a demographic that can't afford a Fit Body Bootcamp franchise location and in a country that we're not even in. Yes, the cost of, so as the marketer's like, I got you a lower cost of lead. That's what you want, right? Well, I want a lower cost of lead who's also qualified to buy the goddamn franchise, right? And so IDS helps us solve the sales guy's problem. And so what EOS is, it's the accountability. Who is accountable? Who are the set of eyes that I need to look into when a problem is happening? Instead of an org chart, there's a accountability chart. And it helps you smoke out issues in your business that you'd never be able to smoke out if you just had an organizational chart. And in fact, when I was the visionary of Fit Body Bootcamp, one day we're having a L10 meeting, a level 10 meeting, and my integrator, Bryce, who at the time was my VP, he's like, hey, B, now that it's IDS, identify, discuss, and solve, we want to identify, discuss, and solve an issue in Fit Body Bootcamp. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What's the issue? Because the issue is with our visionary. Me? Me? Yeah. And there's another thing in EOS called GWC, the get it, want it, and have the capacity filter, right? It's a filter you use.
Yep.
God, I love this. They go, well, you're the visionary, and you're also the founder and president and CEO of the company, so this is weird for us to tee up, but we don't think you have, we think you have the G. You get what the visionary role is. You have the G. That's a yes. We think you want that visionary role. That's a yes. But at the C, the capacity, we don't think you have the time capacity anymore because you're always behind on your to-do list, and no one wants to tell the CEO and the founder of the company, like, hey, man, it's because of you that we're at a bit of a standstill. So we are lobbying to move you out of the visionary seat and put you in the owner's box. That's another EOS terminology. So now you're being elevated up. You're just kind of looking down at the business now. You're no longer in the day-to-day. I'm like, Bryce, I leveraged my house 10 years ago to start Fit Body Bootcamp. How dare you, right? And I was like, whoa, boy. Take it easy, fella. Had to have that conversation with the 1.0 self because I instantly went 1.0. Like, how dare you say
And that was your immediate reaction to the meeting.
Yeah. I went from 2.0 to 1.0, bro. I was like, whoa, boy, easy. like the self-talk was like, dude, don't lose it. Like, these are your friends. Like, they look out for your business. Because as you know, in EOS, I feel like this is a whole pitch for fucking Gino's book. But as you know, this is really how it works, man. As you know, in EOS, like, all of us lose our title when we come into an L10 meeting, and we have to do what's best for the business. That's it. We look out for the business and not the individual. And so they're like, well, you have the G, you get it, you want it, but you don't have the capacity. And does everybody agree? Everyone says yes. And they're like, B, do you agree? I'm like, well, objectively, yes, you're right. I always feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. I feel like I'm letting you guys down. I feel like I have to pick Chloe's volleyball game or I'm working during Chloe's volleyball game. And honestly, guys, I'm burning the candle at both ends. They go, we have a solution. I go, what's the solution? Bryce goes, I can take the visionary seat. You can go up into the owner's box. I go, well, who's going to be your integrator? And then Brittany raises her hand. She goes, we've already worked through this, coach.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's been 3 years now. Bryce is the CEO and visionary. Brittany's the integrator.
And have things got better or worse?
Bro, way better than when I was running the company. I literally walk into Bryce's office every single day. When I walk by his office, I just crack his glass door open. I'm like, hey, you're a better leader, better visionary, better CEO. And I just walk away, right? He is. I was a better founder, but I can't lead and manage a team anymore. It's too big. The franchise is too big. It's not as exciting for me anymore. But I've got the right guy in the right seat. And EOS was able to help us smoke that out.
Wow. And you know what? As I'm hearing you say this, that had to be a bittersweet moment in the sense that, like, John Maxwell talks about, leaders create other leaders.
Yes.
And so in a sense, although it probably sucked at that time, how cool does that feel to have recruited and had leaders on your team that felt comfortable enough to have that conversation and come to you? Have you thought about it from that perspective?
Bro, literally that night, I'm talking to my wife about it. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. She goes, how awesome is that of Bryce? And I was like, oh, yeah. Because it was my ego. It's the Eagles' ego that's hurt, right?
Yeah.
Like, how dare they talk to me this way? And I could do, and sure, I could do it if I avoid going to Chloe's volleyball game and if I avoid working out. And yes, but at what capacity? I'm not going to lower the quality of my life just to be able to do my job. But I was like, I could do this. And it's not a lack of, like, could I do it or not? It's that I didn't have the capacity to do that and also be a family man. But to have a team that really believes in the system, believes in the company, believes in me so much that they were like, hey, we believe that if we do this, this will be better for the company. And then while my ego was hurt, I very quickly was shown through my wife that this is really a cool thing, that they feel they have a voice, that they love the company so much. I've had jobs before, even at Disneyland, where I was like, I know what the better answer is, but I'm not going to bring it up. Like, we all have a problem. The manager's like, man, I don't know how to solve this problem. I knew the answer, but I didn't feel safe bringing up the answer to my manager because I didn't want to look dumb in front of her or the rest of my cast members, the employees. And so I just kept my mouth shut. And I'm like, what a blessing that Bryce and the team took the time. It wasn't like a coup, right?
Yeah.
They did exactly what EOS calls for. Do we have a problem? Yes, we do. Is it repeating itself week after week? Yes, it is. Who is the problem? The visionary. We don't call him the CEO. The visionary, the guy just sitting in this accountability chart. What is the problem? Well, let's put him through the GWC filter. We take all emotions out. But I love Bedros. I love him too, but he ain't got the capacity. Because it's either a hell yes or a hell no, and he ain't got the capacity to do it anymore. And so, man, it was such a good feeling to know that I created a leader. Now, that leader has created like 7 other leaders in this company. One of those leaders that he created is now the VP of my supplement company, Truline.
Wow.
Like-
And those wellness shots are epic, by the way.
Aren't they that game changers?
Yeah, it's up there with oregano oil because oregano oil is pretty impressive. But yeah, those things are amazing. Like it legit works.
Yeah, it does.
It legit
It
works.
does. We can't officially make the claim that like, hey, it will fix you if you have a cold or a flu, because we can't do that. Where the FDA will slap us in the mouth. But I can't tell you how many messages we get per day. Like, I was feeling the cold or the flu coming on, and I took the wellness shots, and I don't know what happened, but I feel better.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Right? And same here. I meet so many people, shake so many hands, speak at so many events. And when I'm traveling, I take 2 wellness shots a day instead of 1, just to reinforce my immune system. And with low sleep, because when I'm speaking on stage, I get little sleep, shaking hands and hugging people. I just seem to not get sick. But I'll, there it is. But anyways, but the fact that a leader created more leaders in this organization, like, I'm so grateful for the team that I've like helped develop, and now the team just now tells me what our next big move is, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I trust them so much. They have a better pulse on the businesses than I do.
Yeah, I want to unpack fear before we wrap up.
Yeah.
So today, something interesting had happened. There's a domain, and I own, my goodness, so many domains. But there's a domain out there that is in line with what I think a book that I'm going to write and some bigger things. And I had been negotiating back and forth and negotiated the price of $4,000. GoDaddy charges a 20% commission, so $4,800. And for 11 days, I procrastinated and fend off the guy from GoDaddy because I was terrified to make that purchase. And at the end of the day, with where our business is at, $5,000 is not going to make or break us, right? But it was just, for some reason, it felt so scary to press that button. This morning we did it, so exciting. But what's a decision that you've recently had to make that terrified you? And like, does it, like, I guess let me reframe a little bit. I thought that at a certain point the fear goes away, right? And I realized in this decision, like, oh snap, it's still there.
Still there.
So how does that show up for you, and what's a recent example of that showing up, and how you dealt with it?
I'm going to tell you exactly. But what I'm laughing at is what you experienced, because you're like, it's crazy that I fended off the guy from GoDaddy for 11 days for $4,800 for $5,000, because you're like, we make the money. It's not going to make or break me. If it was like 50 G's, it's like, okay, let me meditate on this, pray on this, do a sound bowl, hug a tree, talk to my spouse, talk to a few advisors. But it's like $4,000, $5,000, right?
Yeah.
But what it is, it's the old 1.0 version of us who still lives within us, right? That old 1.0 version of us still lives within us. The person is like, I remember when my dad had to make a decision. Do we pay the gas bill or the electric bill? Because we couldn't pay both bills. So till this day, bro, I walk around my house turning lights off. Because my dad I'd be as a little boy, I'd be in our apartment that we were renting, taking a piss. And the door, as the little boys don't give a shit, the doors cracked open, and I had the light on. A hand would come in as I'm taking a piss. I'd see a hand come in, and boop, turn the light off. I'm taking a piss in the dark. And I'm like, Dad, in Armenian, Dad, I'm in here. He's like, you can pee in the dark. I'm like, oh, okay, right? I become that guy. I'm a multi-millionaire, bro, but I'm going around turning off lights and adjusting the thermostat on the AC. And I realize this is just a 1.0 version of me. And there's a great book by Google. Look at how Google saved the day again, because I was like, how do I overcome this? So I did a little Google search. And there's a great book by Gay Hendricks, funny name, Gay Hendricks, called The Big Leap. He literally, a guy who owns multiple private jets, yells at his wife for buying the 2-ply toilet paper. And he gives an example of that. And he's like, why are you buying the 2-ply toilet paper? And when I see how much you use, why are you using so much of the 2-ply toilet paper, right? And like, they're about to have a divorce. A multi-millionaire is about to have a divorce. He owns 2 private jets, multiple companies, millions of dollars, yells at his wife, like, why are you not buying the 1-ply toilet paper? And damn it, woman, why don't you just use like 4 squares? Why are you using 40, right?
Because then we need to buy more detergent.
Exactly. You're going to lose the money one way or another, right? And Gay Hendricks basically uncovers the fact that really, you guys were poor when you were a kid. Toilet paper was one of the things that mom and dad tried to ration and taught you how to ration. They always bought the 1-ply. They told you to use 4 squares. And so anything beyond that triggers the 1.0 version of you still. You haven't fully healed. You just put a new version on top. And the example he gives in his book, if you remember Microsoft, the first version of the Microsoft operating system, and if you had a virus on your computer, it wouldn't ever get rid of the virus. What would it do? It would quarantine the virus, if you remember, right? You had McAfee, virus scan, and it would never get rid of the virus on your hard drive. It would say the virus exists, it's quarantined on this part of your hard drive. And so the old version of us is always quarantined in ourselves. The fearful, the anxiety prone, the person who's afraid of judgment is always quarantined with us. And certain things might happen that will trigger that person to react and respond in a way that's like incongruent. Dude, you own 2 private jets. You're a multimillionaire. Fucking, if she uses 1 toilet roll each time, it should be fine, right? Like, logically, it makes sense. So that's what happened to you, just so you know. Like, why were you putting off this thing for 5 days? It's because the 1.0 version of you was like scared about it, a little anxious about it, but you're like, logically, you're like, I can afford this. So when did I experience that? Remember, I come from a family that moved here from the Soviet Union, right? We lived in Section 8 housing. One of the mottos that my dad kept repeating over and over again, we lived in apartment complexes that were like destitute. He would always say, we run out of money before we run out of month. That's always been ingrained in me. So I just told you before the cameras went live, I told you that my Ram TRX got stolen last week from in front of the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. Now, it's a $106,000 truck. On top of that, I put $30,000 in modifications, both aesthetics but mostly horsepower and torque, because 702 horsepower is not enough. You got to bring it up to 1,000 horsepower. Just round it up to 1,000 horsepower on a truck, right? It's like a death machine, but it's so beautiful. It got stolen. So right now, of course, between the insurance company and Four Seasons, they're trying to figure out who's going to pay what, because the insurance company's like, we're not going to pay for modifications. We'll give you $1,000 towards modifications. So my attorney's going to Four Seasons with a demand letter and saying, hey, look, they're going to get him a new truck, but you owe him the modifications, $30,000. Four Seasons is like, look, this guy's a guest of ours all over the country, all over the world. I was just in Australia, and I stayed at the Four Seasons. So they're like, we'll make it good, we'll make it right, but it's going to take time. 90% of my brain is like, I'm going to wait until these motherfuckers give me my money, then I'll go buy the 2024 truck. I literally have an American Express black card, bro. I can throw the black card to any Ram dealer and get the truck. In fact, I told you, I finally made it. So your version of 11 days, mine's been about 7 days now. I should have bought the truck the next day and just started modifying it. Instead, I look at a Ram TRX on the street just driving by, and my heart just hurts and tears come to my eyes, and I'll point one out to my son. Son, there goes a Ram TRX. He's like, oh, Dad, you going to buy one? I'm like, no, I'm waiting for them to give me the check because the old version of me was always broke. Bro, I just need to go throw the black card out to my homie now who says he can find me one. And tomorrow I should have one like on a flatbed heading over to me. But instead, for a whole week and a half now, I've been hand-wringing because I'm like, not until they pay me, I'm not going to buy it. So there's my version of that. You asked me like when.
Yeah.
The 1.0 version of us always lives within. It's quarantined. We just override it with the 2.0 version. But from time to time, things will happen that triggers it. You just have to have enough self-awareness to go, this isn't me, the 2.0 version, making this decision. This is the 1.0 version trying to sabotage me. I better buy this domain before someone else picks it up. In my case, I better get that 2024 fully loaded TRX because there ain't no 2025s, bro. Like that's it. They made it for 4 years and that's it.
Oh, and that's it.
Yeah, the 2025s go down to a V6 that's turbocharged, which is effectively lame. Like who wants to have a V6 truck?
Yeah.
No offense to anyone that's got a V6 truck. And shaking his hand. I've had V6 trucks. It's just I don't want a V6 TRX.
Oh, I love fast. I
Yeah.
have a Range Rover SVR, and that thing has 550 horsepower. Not
There you go.
700, but it's like, it's the best feeling.
That's formidable, man. You get on it and it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Real last question this time, because that triggered something, which is, you got all these people that want to be successful, make a bunch of money, but what I heard you talk about is identity. Identity. I think it was Tony Robbins who said something around that you will never outperform the most consistent need that we have is to be consistent with our identity.
Yes.
Meaning if I'm a $100,000 person, I'm always, even if I get past it, I'm going to figure out a way to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you upgrade your identity when you're in that moment of that plateau that kind of Bruce Lee talks about?
Yes. Great question. So identity is a byproduct of the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Me, I was molested as a kid between the ages of 4 and 6. So the story that I told myself for 30 some odd years was, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy of good love. And so I always had like treacherous relationships. And then as I got married, I realized looking back, I was always the one causing problems in our marriage because I wasn't comfortable in a healthy marriage. And so I was always trying to go back to treacherous relationships because I felt unlovable because I was molested as a kid. I just felt like I was unworthy. And so when you tell yourself a story, when something's happened to you and you tell yourself a story, like, I'm always going to be fat, I'm always going to be broke, I never remember people's names, whatever the story is, how benign or how big it is. If someone's like, well, I'm always fat, I've always had slow metabolism, everyone in my family's fat, so that's the story. Now you've created an identity that, like, I'm a fat kid who's clumsy and I've got slow metabolism like everyone in my family. So then after identity is beliefs. And this is why we go looking for evidence in life, beliefs, to reinforce the story or the identity that we've put on ourselves. So how do you change it? You change the story, you change the identity, you change your belief system. And so when your identity is, I've always been a fat kid, I'll never be lean and muscular, and every time you try and get lean and muscular, you do something to sabotage your fitness, it's because your belief system is that I'm never going to change, there's no hope, and you always find evidence in your life to justify why this identity is the way it is. So if you change your story, and the story is, I was a fat kid, I know everything I need to know. If I eat these macros and if I work out this way and if I get my rest and sleep and I take my creatine and glutamine, that I can become a lean and jacked person, and you start buying into the identity of someone who's going to be lean and jacked, you'll start finding new belief systems out there, evidence that, you know what, I am getting leaner. Look at that. Veins are coming out. Holy shit, I got abs. Holy crap, this is interesting. I'm probably going to be the first one in my family to have abs. So story, identity, belief system. Change the story, change the identity, you'll find new belief systems.
Boom. B, thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.